Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. Welcome to a Thursday edition of the program, Pot Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It's Thursday. That means we'll have our college football analyst, Brent Beaird, and then we'll have Marty Pallman from the prepzone.com giving us a breakdown of what's going on in the high school football playoffs in the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup. Tonight, not a whole lot happened last night in basketball, except for Texas just destroying Gonzaga. In basketball. Tonight, you get the Packers and the Titans, Thursday night football, and then Tulane and SMU, I think, playing college. Let's go to the Titan More Hotline, and we're joined by our college football analyst, Brent Beaird. You can follow Brent on Twitter at Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How are you, my man?
Well, I'm doing good. If anyone's not awake, all they need to do is walk outside for a minute, and they will be. But it's nice to have some cooler weather, as we will have. Not as cool as it was in that Maction game last night with Central Michigan. Shane, did you see that with the blizzard?
I did. It was crazy. I saw the first half. I didn't see the second half. I don't know if it got worse or better, but that was a lot of snow on that field.
I'm guessing from being in Chicago for a while. Have you played in conditions like that?
I mean, I was in Buffalo where it snows more than it does in Chicago.
Yeah, good point.
No games, but I have seen it live, like on a Tuesday afternoon or Tuesday the entire day. But never a game where it snowed that much. And I want to say it's supposed to be like that for the Bills versus Browns this Sunday. Blizzard type weather. So it ain't fun. I mean, you can only do so much. That's the thing. It's not the cold has nothing to do with it. It's just you can't do anything. You can't move.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, Brent, college football. The rankings have come out. I don't think there's any surprise. At least there aren't to me.
No.
I said last week's show, and I still stick to my guns. There's only 5 teams, in my opinion, that have a chance for the 14 playoff, and the outside one could be the USC Trojans. I know LSU, people talk about they have a chance if they win the SEC. They ain't winning the SEC. I just don't know how they can beat Georgia.
Right.
So it all comes down to, I think Tennessee actually sits in the best spot of anybody right now.
They might. And they don't have to play Georgia again. Now, this is something that's interesting that they have been able to figure out. Give Brett McMurphy credit for this. At this point of the season, the lowest ranked teams to make the playoffs, number 9 Oklahoma in 2019, number 9 Michigan State in 2015, number 7 Georgia in 2017, and number 7 Oklahoma in 2015. And there were several number 6s that got in. But the point is, from here on out, you really have to have a lot happen in terms of upsets in order to go up. And the lowest was number 9 in 19 and 15. But Shane, to your point, that there would have to be a lot of upsets and some insane things to happen for someone to get to the playoffs if you're ranked number 9.
Yeah, there are some Power 5 teams that are already eliminated from bowl contention. You can read through some of those. There's one that really stands out to me. Obviously, it's the Aggies. Mm-hmm. The Aggies are the only team in the Southeastern Conference right now that are eliminated from a bowl. Think about that.
That's right. Yeah, that's amazing. And with the risk of piling on, Remember, this is the team that Desmond Howard on game day predicted that would be in the national championship game. Teams eliminated: Arizona State, Boston College, Cal, Colorado, Indiana, Nebraska, again, Northwestern, Stanford. I tell you what, that Stanford program has been mediocre or below for quite a while. Texas A&M, Virginia, and Virginia Tech, which is certainly embarrassing for both those teams. But look, from Shane and I and the team here, our prayers and thoughts go out to the Virginia football team and those students and parents and all who are involved in that awful tragedy. If people have not heard, they did cancel the game on Saturday, so they will not be playing, and that certainly is understandable.
Yeah, just it's horrific what happened there. It's hard to believe, quite honestly. Before we move on, UCLA and USC play each other this week. As I said, USC is still kind of in the mix because they only have one loss. And there's talk. Give us a Cliff Note version of what's going on with UCLA and the Big Ten.
This is really almost comical when you look at it, but now USC is a private school. UCLA is not. So UCLA still deals with the University of California Board of Regents. So they're meeting today to decide whether that UCLA is going to leave for the Big Ten. Not everybody is on board with this, so they're going to decide that, and they may say we have concerns but take no action. That is a possibility. Let me give you the bottom line here. The Big Ten payout from the new media rights deal signed in August is expected to be approximately $75 million a year. Pac-12 teams made $34 million per school annually in 2020, and that hasn't made that much of a difference from then to last year. The big gripe is travel, but Shane, we can do the math pretty quickly. That extra money that you're going from 34 to 75, that would pay for a lot of travel, would it not?
Yeah, just a little bit. Okay, so some of the conference championship games have already been clinched. You want to give us what we know as of today?
Yeah, Clemson and North Carolina, which would be an interesting game in the ACC. TCU in the Big 12. Well, what a season they've had. Toledo and the MAC has clinched. We know about LSU in Georgia in the SEC, and in the Sun Belt, Coastal Carolina. Now, we've still got others to go. And by the way, for your, this is kind of interesting too, for your group of five, the kind of the pecking order right now for New Year 6 would be number one, Gus Malzahn and UCF, Coastal Carolina, UTSA, which is a good school. Tulane's having a great year. They're on TV tonight. Troy and South Alabama. So just to throw that in too.
Yeah, that game last week between UCF and Tulane was pretty much for the New Year's 6 bowl game probably, and it looks like the Knights will get that. Cliff has a question on Facebook Live brought to you by Mel Law. Is Shaw still the head coach at Stanford? Yes. If so, do y'all see him retaining his job?
Well, I would say if this was in another conference, in another situation, very well, maybe not. Look, I like Shaw. He overall, especially early, did a pretty good job. I'm curious if you know him, by the way.
I don't.
but they take a different look at football at Stanford with these the academic schools as they do the others. Now, look, at some point you got to win, and otherwise people quit coming to your games. But I'll say this, and tell me if you've heard differently, Shane. But I haven't seen Shaw real high up in the hot seat list, but with them out of a bowl and having another bad year, that might be coming pretty soon.
Yeah, it could. As you said, if he was in another conference, he would definitely be catching some heat for sure. Brent, there's an interesting stat in your notes you sent me about the freshmen playing in the SEC, the percentage of snaps, the true freshmen on the field. Run through those real quick for us.
Yeah. A&M's played 100% of their freshmen. Ole Miss 91, Kentucky 85, Vandy 78, the Gators 58%, Alabama 53%, Arkansas 14%, Mississippi State 4%. Shane, how about that?
Yeah, it's strange, and honestly, I know the Aggies with their big recruiting class that they signed, they pretty much had to play those guys.
Yep, they did.
If they were worth their darn or not, they had to do it. Real quick, Zach asked, Shane, your hoodie, where can we get one of those? Shoot me a text message. I have a bunch of them. Our company sells them. So Brent, in the Heisman race, I saw this. Give us your Heisman voter. I'm interested in right now. I know you're not supposed to talk about it, but I guess you're not supposed to talk about who you vote for.
Right.
Could you say today who your top three that you would want to see in New York? Who would those guys be?
Well, I think Hendon Hooker would be there, and I tell you this. I'm curious if you've seen him much. Drake May at North Carolina is really coming on. I mean, last week he was 31 of 49, 448, ran for another 71. So I would be very curious about him being there, and probably C.J. Stroud of Ohio State. Now, the Michigan game may determine a lot of this with him, and I think, and frankly, I think Bryce Young's numbers have been tremendous for not playing as much as he would want to. So he's certainly in there. Blake Corum of Michigan is also one of the guys who were mentioned. Caleb Williams of USC. Bo Nix is kind of on the list now, a little further down, but he's on the list. Max Dugan of TCU. So, Shane, I'll say this: it's probably the most or the closest race that we may have had in quite a while, because no one at this point has really, I'm not going to say that stood out, but they haven't run away with it. So, but we've still got rivalry games and the championship games, and that could decide it.
Yeah, Zach, send a message to this Facebook Live here, and they'll get it to me. However you do that on the messaging portion. So here's why I brought that up, Brent. You know how, and when it comes bubble time in the NCAA tournament, they do the blind. They put up the resumes, and they don't tell you who the team is. Well, I saw someone do one on Twitter yesterday, and I'm going to read it real quick. They had five potential candidates. Player A has thrown for 2,800 yards, 34 total touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 67 completion percentage. Player B, 3,996 yards, 39 total TDs, 3 interceptions, 70% completion percentage. Player C, 3,293 yards, 29 TDs, 2 interceptions, 71% completion. Player D, 3,039 total yards, 21 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 68%. Player E, 3,293 total yards, 37 total touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 64% completion. All right. Without us putting the graphics up, it's hard for people to remember that.
Right.
But player A was C.J. Stroud, B was Drake May, C. Hendon Hooker, D. Stetson Bennett, E. Caleb Williams. And based on all those stats, which the Heisman usually is,
Yes.
They say C.J. Stroud shouldn't even be in the top 5, and that Drake May should be the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy.
Well,
I agree with that. I agree with it, quite honestly.
Yeah, and that's and again, people are going to point to the competition for Ohio State too. The guy that really people are still overlooking is Stetson Bennett. And look, to me, what now he's got a great team around him, okay? But here's a reality: they don't have a real bell cow at running back, and they don't have one at wide receiver. So basically, what you've got is Stetson's doing what he's doing with a group. And Shane certainly has played and would understand this. But in other words, Georgia, you could argue, probably doesn't have a true number one receiver, and they don't have a true number one running back. And to me, Shane, that's what makes the Stetson Bennett situation more impressive.
Well, you kind of made your point, because when you think of the people that have won the Heisman Trophy, even go back to when Danny and Tebow won it here. They had NFL dudes all around them, first-round draft picks.
Absolutely.
I don't know what Stetson has around him at Georgia on offense. I really don't.
Yeah.
So, but Drake May's the same way. And yeah, Drake May plays in the ACC. I get it. His team's 8-1. They've won a lot of close games. But that dude is ridiculous how good he is as a redshirt freshman.
Agreed.
On the Titan Mark text line, Chris from Cottondale says, you said yesterday Kitna was the backup. He was moved past Miller on the depth chart. If so, is it because of injury or performance? If you had to go one of those QBs next year, which one would it be and why? I hadn't seen enough of it. I mean, I don't think Jack Miller's 100%. He's listed as the third guy on the depth chart right now. When you come back, especially, I shattered my thumb on the last game with the Bears one season, so it screwed up my entire all season in the golf. But you got to be careful. And I know the Drew Breeses and some of those guys have come back. Some guys just heal different. It's your throwing. The thumb is so important in gripping the football that, maybe Jack Miller's taking him longer to heal and come back from rehab and stuff. But it's hard to answer that. I don't know which one I'd want at quarterback. I mean, heck, it may be Jaden Rashada. We don't know.
Yeah.
Greg says DeJuan Black, he's gone. Yes, he is gone. They booted him off the team for issues, and we'll get to that here in just a second. All right, Brent, let's start around you got any other news before we jump into the SEC?
Yeah, let me mention this real quick, that there was progress yesterday with the college football playoff expansion. This is from Nicole Auerbach. The Board of Managers resolved the revenue distribution issue for 24 and 25, and payouts would be even more per school in the Power 5. She also says the Rose Bowl issue still needs to be resolved. And again, this is a Rose Bowl thinking it's more than it is, in their time slot and all that. We'll get into that when we have more time later. But I thought that was significant that they resolved some of these issues. And did you hear the date with that, Shane?
I did not.
Resolve the revenue distribution issue for 24 and 25. So now look, that's not official, but I'm sure hoping that that will be tremendous news if we've got this thing going by 24.
Yeah, a couple of Facebook Lives here. Jerry asked on Facebook Live, so Shane, you really don't want AR to be our QB next year? I didn't say that. He's going to be a first-round draft pick, so you go. Consistency is his problem. We know the talent. We know all that. You want a consistent guy at that position. And it's just my belief, and I've been wrong before, but I've seen a lot of players, and his consistency is the problem. And I don't think it will change next year either if he comes back. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I don't know if he'll be, I don't know why you don't go pro if you're going to be a first round draft pick in the NFL. Joseph says, QB, did you see the comments from Rick Wells concerning Whittemore? What's your thoughts? Have no idea what that's referring to. No idea. Let us know. All right. Alabama comes off the big win against Ole Miss. What's coming out of Tuscaloosa?
Well, they play Austin Peay this weekend, and then obviously they've got Auburn next weekend. Byron Young did himself a lot of good in the Ole Miss win, 11 tackles, 2 for loss, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. So that's impressive. This is the 11th time in 15 SEC games since 2021 that Bama was playing in a one-score game in the fourth quarter. So a couple of quick things from Saban. Freshman Emmanuel Henderson, he said it was really blossomed. Kendrick Blackshear, the linebacker, has a wrist injury and he's out. They're hoping they get him back very soon. So, but at this point, Austin Peay that'll be the noon game on ESPN Plus for any Alabama fans listening.
And Chris Storing Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Storing Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Speaking with Brent Beaird in the Titanmore Hotline. All right, the Hogs host Ole Miss. Hogs are struggling, Brent. Lost a bunch of games. They have quarterback issues when KJ Jefferson. I mean, for them to have a chance to win the game against LSU with the just miserable quarterback play was phenomenal. It just goes to show you can't win if you have no quarterback. This could be a sneaky game for Ole Miss. They could be in trouble if they don't pay attention.
Yep, I agree. And Arkansas was going for bowl eligibility too. They played a very hard schedule. Arkansas, frankly, probably should have beat LSU. Now, they had Malik Hornsby in first because KJ Jefferson couldn't play. Then they put Kate Fortin in. I don't know if you got to see any of him at all.
He completed a few passes.
He did. They had a touchdown drive, and Fortin threw 2 passes that were as good as anybody in the league could have thrown. So it was a disappointing loss, but the Hogs really put pressure on Jaden Daniels. Ole Miss coming off the Alabama loss. Jackson Dart, Quinton Junkins leads the SEC in rushing. Zach Evans didn't do much in the previous game. They got bogged down in the second half. You still got rumors about Auburn getting Lane Kiffin, and that's going to be going on for a while because Jimmy Sexton is Lane Kiffin's agent, and he will be keeping his client in the news, so his client can at least get a raise and an extension from Ole Miss.
Ah, interesting. Okay, so Rick Wells apparently Tony said, quote, "You got to really compete now. Daddy and coach relationship don't matter no more." Saying that Billy Gonzalez played favorites in the new staff. I disagree with that 100%. Look, Ricky Pearsall is a really good player. It's a player that this staff brought in. And, Trent's a really good player. But when a coach brings in his guy that plays your position, usually they're going to favor that guy. So Rick's probably upset because somebody else brought him in and then Trent played on top of him. So I don't buy that one bit at all. Auburn hosts Western Kentucky, which is a dicey game because they can throw it around. Cadillac, it's a great story. I loved his interview with Cole Kubelik after the game. There's no way he gets this job, though. Don't you agree, Brent?
No, there's not. Now, I'll say this, if they run the table, that might be a different story, but that's just not going to happen. They do have a new AD, Cohen, who used to be the AD at Mississippi State, so he'll be making that decision maybe, when in reality it's usually the power brokers at Auburn. But Auburn's 4-6. They're trying to get bowl eligible. They beat A&M, which right now is not a great feat by any means. But to your point, Western Kentucky is 7-4. They beat Charlotte. They beat Rice in consecutive weeks. The coach there is Tyson Helton, who is a relative of Clay Helton, who is at USC. And they've got a really good quarterback, Austin Reed, who is a transfer from Southern Illinois. So my point is he's got 3,500 yards passing, 31 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So Auburn needs to be careful in this game.
Yes. Okay, so back do you think Lane Kiffin is their next head coach?
No, I don't. I think, I'm not sure who it will be. I've just talked to some people at Ole Miss who have told me that probably will not happen. I'm not. I mean, we can't slam the door on anything at this point. But again, and he's just doing his job. But don't forget who the agent is here is Jimmy Sexton, and Sexton would do, in fairness, everything he can for his client to either get him a new job, or he will get him keep his old job, but with a lot more money and an extension.
Yeah, Brandon said if Trent was a really good player, he'd be on the field. He is a good player, in my opinion. He's performed very well every time he's played. Sometimes somebody at your position gets more playing time and is a really good player as well. He will go to Mississippi State or wherever else and catch a bunch of balls. Mm-hmm. So you can trust me on that. Yeah. Austin Reed came from West Florida. He transferred from Southern Illinois to West Florida to Western Kentucky. JB, you're correct. All right, so Brent, let me get my notes up here. Gators going to Vanderbilt, coming off 2 wins. Should be an easy win. I just think Vanderbilt's terrible, even though they won their first game in 26 SEC tries. What you see happening in Nashville?
Yeah, and it'll be cold, but in Nashville that just happens. Help me on this, Shane, but I think Justin Shorter is back.
I think so. I think I think he's going to try to go. Frazier's is out again. Also, Xavier Henderson is out this week, so they'll be playing a bunch of new wideouts. Yeah,
here's a stat to keep in mind in this game. Is Florida is 6-0 when they run for more than 210 yards. They're 0-4 when they don't. Vanderbilt has only allowed more than 210 yards twice. So that's an interesting note to keep in mind. Florida averaging 225 yards a game, the most since 2008 when they won the national championship. Now, and also Griffin McDowell is going into the transfer portal as a grad transfer. So congratulations to him for that. Now Vandy has played better. Vandy's 4-6. Yeah, let me see a show of hands on 75 who thought Vandy'd be 4-6. Mike Wright now is the quarterback, and he did I tell you what, he did a great job of that in that Kentucky win. They actually won a game in the last minute, which is something they haven't done in a long time. Florida's a better team. There's no doubt about that. But I tell you what, I give that coaching staff at Vandy some credit. They've had a much better year than people thought they would.
Yes, they have. They're still in bowl contention. They went out. Georgia travels to Kentucky. Our good buddy Doran
Shane, this is going to be an interesting game only because we thought Kentucky was going to be much better than they are, and they have basically, I wouldn't say they've fallen apart after the Vandy loss, but they're 6-4. Chris Rodriguez still playing well. Tavion Robinson doing well. Will Levis had just been beat up the whole year because the offensive line has been so bad. So that's the other thing. And Mark Stoops mentioned, I was a little surprised at this, that they have a new coordinator from the NFL, Scangarello, and that the scheme has been too complex. So I'll be interested to see what they do with that over the next few weeks going into the bowl game.
Well, it's a West Coast offense, so just a basic play. Stem to east right zine, close A, Z fly, scat 322 Y stick. Okay. Can you imagine? Well, first of all, they don't huddle anymore, so everything is signaled in.
Yeah.
But that's a long drawn out play to throw 5-yard pass play.
It sure is.
Yeah. But that's the West Coast. Those teams in the NFL, that's what they have. So I remember that one for some reason. Because so I'm going to jump to another game that I guess it only matters from a national implications is Tennessee at South Carolina. I don't know why I think this. I think Josh Heupel's going to score over 50 against them.
Yeah. I think that's probably true. Coaches have long memories in these things too. And the other thing is, South Carolina just continues to struggle. I mean, you saw them up close and personal. They look. In fairness to Shane Beamer, would it be safe to say, Shane, and we don't have much time left, they made progress, and I give him a lot of credit for that. But they still have a long way to go, don't they?
They really do. They're a bad football team. All right, let's skip real quick to the ACC. Florida State hosts the Gators next week, but they have Louisiana. The Raging Cajuns are rolling into town. This is interesting to me because it allows Billy an opportunity, just the entire staff that pretty much came to Louisiana, because they run the same schemes.
Mm-hmm.
It's how does Florida State match up? How do they, align to certain formations? What are they trying to do to this formation, this personnel grouping? So I'm curious, does it play favor to Florida State because they get to see it for like 2 weeks? Or Billy's going to be able to see what Florida State was doing, and he can counteract that with other stuff. So it's an interesting matchup to me. And Florida State better be careful. I mean, they're not the same team they've been in the past, but they're still a pretty good team. Absolutely,
they are. Florida State 7-3, 8 wins, we think, possibly 9, which is just unbelievable. Jordan Travis has been very steady. Trey Benson, the transfer from Oregon, has been really good too. Now, this is an amazing stat here. Florida State is now 11th in total defense in the country. They're 16th in total offense. The only other teams in the top 20 in both are Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State. I mean, that tells you, doesn't it, Shane, where they've improved. Now, look, are they a great team? No, but they're much, much improved from what they've been over the last few years. Offensive line's better. We talked about the skill position players. This has been a very, very good year for FSU.
Yep, they've had a great year, no question about it. Brent, we appreciate your time. Enjoy the games this weekend, and we'll talk to you next week, bud.
Good. Can't wait. Take care, bud. Thank you.
That's Brent Beaird. Join us on the Titan MR Hotline. We're going to take our time out, come back. We're going to jump into the high school football with our marvelous Marty Pallman from the PrepZone.com. Playoffs are heating up. You're watching and listening to Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogra State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wiebe Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit podupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Pro Football legend Emmitt Smith understands your joint pain.
It does not surprise me that there are a ton of people out there that's in pain.
That's why Emmitt is such a proponent of QC Kinetics, offering real lasting joint pain relief with non-surgical, all-natural biologic treatments.
Whether it's a joint pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, any kind of pain, the body eventually will break down when it's under that much stress.
That stress can cloud your judgment to the point that you'll just say yes to the scalpel or yes to another prescription of pain pills. But maybe it's time for a second opinion from QC Kinetics.
The reason why I would recommend this is because the natural biologics that QC Kinetics is providing you gives your body a chance to naturally heal itself.
Restorative, regenerative solutions are here. Get lasting relief and live your life.
Call QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration points where the Gators go to celebrate with premium brands like Bass Pro Shops, International Diamond Center, Regal Cinemas, Dave & Buster's, Nike, Wawa, the Gadget Guys, and the HBC's restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. Now selling Head Beer Coach, American Lager, and draft in 16-ounce cans at Spurrier's, Visors, Gator Gaines, and select stores across America. That'd be Gainesville. We will see you at Celebration Point where the Gators go to celebrate. Now we're going to go to the Titan Number Hotline, and we're joined by marvelous Marty Pallman from the PrepZone.com. Good morning, Marty. How are you, bud?
Morning, Shane. It's good to be with you. It's been a little while, but I'm glad to be talking to you today.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we jump into high school football playoffs that are hot and heavy right now, we need to give a shout out to the Santa Fe Lady Raiders going back-to-back state titles in volleyball. Really good volleyball team that they have there in Alachua.
Yeah, it is back-to-back, and not only that, but pretty dominant. They didn't lose a set until the championship match last week. They lost one in the playoffs. They won that in 4 against Academy of Holy Names. They beat a good Bishop Kenny team in the state semis in 3 sets. They swept them 30-2 this year. And I know I have to look at the national rankings. I'm pretty sure they were ranked nationally. And, you know, the team last year may have been a little better than this year's team. Their 2 losses this year actually came to Trinity Catholic, who made it to the state semifinals. And Santa Fe lost very early in the season to a team from Texas, like the first week of the season. But yeah, they're something right now. In fact, they've been in the state championship game for the last 5 years. So they could have had 4 state titles in 5 years. They're that close. So yeah, they've built themselves. Coach Marshall built himself quite a program at Santa Fe, and we congratulate him, as you said, on another state title. And not only that, we don't talk cross country. The Buholtz and Oak Hall both won state titles in cross country. So it's been a pretty good fall for Alachua County teams up to this point.
Yeah, I think Buholtz won cross country last year too. They have some folks over there. They can run some long distances over there. All right, so high school football. Let's start in the big classifications, whatever they're called nowadays. The Buholtzes of the world. They survived a game. I believe it was against Pace, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Yeah, I broadcast that game last week on the Main Street Daily News, and it was that was one of the better high school football games I've broadcast in a while, because Creed Whittemore just did everything. I mean, they needed to drive at the end of the game. Buholtz was down 6 with about 2:20 left. He took them down the field. They went 94 yards in about a minute and a half, and he scores to make it 34-30. It was 34-27 Pace. So he scores at 34-33. Threw a touchdown pass, Creed Whittemore, and then his dad, Coach Mark, decides to go for 2. 45 seconds left instead of going for the tying extra point, and Creed goes right, goes left, gets to the pylon, and gets the 2-point conversion. But he had a 40-yard run earlier in the game for a touchdown. He had a 29-yard run on that drive, got them going. And he was playing defense late in the game. Now, the only issue Buholtz had, they gave him a lot of yards on the ground last week against Pace. And their defense has not been good the last 3 games against Bowles, Fleming Island, and also last week against Pace. So now with Crestview coming in this week, who won at Niceville, and that's a rivalry game in the Panhandle. They're going to have to face another Panhandle team. Even though it is at Citizens Field this week, that game was at Newberry last Friday due to the Hurricanes with Beals and Pace. But Beals has got some issues defensively, but right now it's really on the shoulders of Creed Whittemore, it seems. And he last week he kind of willed them to victory a little bit.
Well, how do you see what do you know about Crestview and the winner of this game will play who?
Well, the winner of this game most likely, I'd say Bartram Trail. They're playing Creekside this week on the other side, top of the bracket, the regional semis. So that's a rivalry game, Bartram Trail and Creekside. They're about 3 miles apart there in St. Johns County, but Creekside went on the road last week and beat DeVar 47-20. So they're going to give Bartram a game, but I would say the winner most likely will go to Bartram Trail next week. And Beals has already done that once this year. They lost their first game of the season, 21-6 at Bartram Trail. They've had a bit of a rivalry as they're in the same district. As far as Crestview goes, pretty balanced team. I mean, from when I looked at their stats, their quarterback can throw it around a little bit. They, they played there in a district with Niceville, who's always a good team. One thing is about Panhandle football is we don't always pay attention to it here, and I say I was kind of I'm guilty of that last week with Pace. I thought, well, Field, so I have no problem. Yeah, Pace was a really good team. Their quarterback could run, not quite as quick as Creed Whittemore, not as big, but he could run. He was only a sophomore, but Crestview's quarterback, Brazan, is a senior. He has 20 TDs, 4 interceptions. He's thrown for 1,900 yards, and he's also run for about 610 touchdowns. So, again, another dual-threat quarterback. And they have a running back that ran for 1,200 yards. So, yeah, Crestview's going to have a pretty balanced attack coming in. And Behold, again, defensively got gashed pretty badly the last couple of weeks, especially on the ground.
Okay, so then the other people in this area that are still alive are the rural type 1A or whatever it's called now. Give us a rundown of who's still alive and who may move on.
Don't forget, PK Young actually is playing because they were on bye last week. Their classification 1S. What's the other? By the way, Shane, remember, S means suburban, M means metropolitan. So those are the cities now.
It's not rural?
Our area. Yeah. S is our area, suburban, they call it. And then, yes, rural, the rural classification. But PK Young's in 1S, which also has Trinity Catholic in it. And PK Young has to travel. Yeah. So, and by the way, PK Young, if they win, and they're at Holy Trinity Episcopal Academy this week in Melbourne, most likely will play Trinity Catholic last week. So that's going to be tough for them. But they did have a bye last week, and they'll be playing coming up tomorrow night at Melbourne. Now, as you said, the rural classification, we got a lot of teams playing, of course, still there. One surprise last week may be Williston getting knocked out, undefeated this season under Coach Robbie Pruitt in his first year back in Florida, but they ran into Wildwood. There was a good Wildwood team, and that game was played Saturday night at Williston, and Wildwood in a shootout won 46-35. So we were all kind of anticipating Williston and Hawthorne this week, 2 undefeated teams. Instead, Wildwood will go to Hawthorne tomorrow night, and as Hawthorne had a bye last week, the 2-time defending state runner-up. So look out for that game in the rural classification. Chiefland blew out Newberry 49-7 last week. So now Chiefland's got to take that trip down to Pahokee, of course, because, the only team in the rural classification south of, Gainesville, basically, Pahokee. So Chiefland will be there. And then Union County had a bye last week. They're the number 1 seed in their region, and they only get Madison County this week. So that's going to be an interesting game because Madison County is only 4-6 this year, the defending rural state champs, but they've played their schedule is kind of ridiculous for a 1-hour team. So that's going to be, I think that Madison Union game is going to be one to watch, and that will be in Lake Butler. So at least the Tigers do have a home field advantage there.
Yeah, I like Union County in that game. So who would the winner of Union County Madison possibly play next week? Someone in the Panhandle?
No, they would actually play the winner of Hilliard and Lafayette. That game will be tomorrow night. Mayo, Lafayette beat Brantford last week. They play at Hilliard tomorrow night. So it'll be a team from North Central or Northeast Florida. And then after that, you can get into playing kind of more teams from actually, you would play a team, probably Hawthorne, and then you'd play a team from the Panhandle.
That's right.
In the state championship game. Yeah.
Well, that side of the bracket, I don't want to call it easier, but it's easier than the South version or whatever it's called. The Hawthorne side
absolutely.
is much harder than the Union County side, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I thought Hawthorne, again, Wildwood had to beat an undefeated Williston team. They did. Now they have to go to Hawthorne. Hawthorne, either will have to beat Wildwood and then probably either Pahokee or Chiefland to move on. And, yeah, you're right. Those are really good teams. I think Chiefland has a good chance to win that game at Pahokee. I know it's tough to go down there and play, but, Chiefland this year, they lost their last game to Williston, but I don't know if I really want to count that even. And that game was close late. They looked good against Newberry. I think Chiefland's got a real chance to go down and win that game despite having to travel all the way down to the muck, as they call it. And also, sorry, go ahead.
Rose-Ogre State Farm offers a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ogreinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. Speaking with marvelous Marty Pallman from the prepzone.com. Marty, I want to ask you about, first of all, let's talk Eastside. Eastside's still in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you said that because I almost forgot about them. Sorry I did that. But, yeah, Eastside definitely is still in the playoffs. And they beat North Marion last week for the second time this year. And the Rams won their first district title in 10 years. They really had a big year at Eastside. And last week, maybe a little surprising to some, but they beat North Marion the first time. The Colts were kind of banged up. But last week, Eastside went wire to wire. They had a 96-yard touchdown run, and they knocked off North Marion against them. But this week, it's going to be a tough matchup. They've got to go to Bradford, and Bradford has been defensively. I think the most points they've given up a game is year 10. That was the only game they lost, 10-7 to Swanee. So Bradford's, it's going to be a tough one for Eastside going to Stark. But, yeah, the Rams are still there. They're still alive, and they're going to get a shot to move on in the next round. This is going to be one of their tougher matchups.
I meant to ask you or ask Mike did Vanguard not make the playoffs this year?
Yeah, Vanguard's in the playoffs. No, they are. And,
okay, they just kind of been flying under the radar. I have heard nothing about them.
Yeah, they kind of have. It's true, and they actually won their opener last week, 35-0. Pardon me, over a team from Newport Richey. They're the 4 seed now. The thing is, they play a lot of teams from Central Florida too. Like this week, they're going to Lake Wales, and I don't know a lot about Lake Wales, but they're the number 1 seed in that region. They're unbeaten, so obviously it'll be a tough game for Vanguard to go down there and win. But Vanguard's had a lot of tough playoff matchups through the years. Vanguard actually beat Lake Wales last year in the second round at Booster Stadium. But yeah, the Knights are there. Vanguard's still alive, and Trinity Catholic's kind of, to me, been flying under the radar. But Trinity Catholic really is considered the favorite in their classification, which is 1S, and I don't see why they may win another state title. But I think for Vanguard to get to where is it? There's in Fort Lauderdale, I believe, the state championship. They're going to have to. This week's game at Lake Wales may be one of their tougher matchups if they want to make it all the way to state.
I would say Trinity Catholic has the easiest route to winning a state title as anything I've ever seen, personally. So I think it's they're not gonna cut down the net, so to speak, but they will be carrying John Brantley off the field. All right, Marty, we got a text here before we let you go on the Titan Mar text line from John. He says, Marty, who's the best high school player that you have seen in person this year?
That's in this area. That's got to be Creed Whittemore. I don't think I can have a lot of argument about that. And I know I've probably seen Buholtz a few more times than anyone else, but that or any other team. But I look around these teams. I can't think of a player who's been better, and that would be. Now I know if you look at Hawthorne and the numbers that Jalen Ruth puts up defensively, he's one of the reasons why they're so good. In fact, he decommitted from Washington State this week, Jalen Ruth. He's been committed to them for a while. So that's interesting to me. I wonder if there's some local teams who might be looking at him now. But, it's got to be Whittemore. And he's shown it that he can put that team on his back and win games. And, that would be the answer. By the way, I'm sorry, one team I did forget is Columbia. And they got to go to Pensacola to play Escambia. They won their opener against Lincoln. So Columbia Tigers are still going, but they've got to make that trip to 6 hours to the Panhandle. That's always a tough one.
Yeah, it is. Speaking of Creed, I mean, you, Marty, you're a football junkie, so you watch all football, college, pro,
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
Don't you think he is the perfect fit for Mike Leach in the slot?
Yeah.
I mean, he's like Wes Welker, and he probably is more athletic than Wes Welker. So we'll see. I think it's a great move for him.
He's definitely bigger than Wes Welker, I can tell you that much. But that's true. It's the more you think about it, he wasn't supposed to even be a quarterback in high school, and he just came in because their starter was injured, and the next thing you know, he's been a 3-4 year starter. So maybe kudos to Mark Whittemore for coaching him up. I'm sure that's what it is, but
it's a prime example of, and you watch a lot of high school football. Put your best player at quarterback.
That's true.
But the difference is Creed has an idea of how to throw the football a little bit, but he was going to be a slot receiver at the next level, and I think he'll be a really good player for a long time. Marty, before we go ahead.
No, that's right. I think he is a better fit at Mississippi State than he probably would have been for Napier at Florida. I agree with you, Shane.
Yeah. Before we let you go, what call do y'all have this week?
Well, we got 2 games actually. Mike will be at Hawthorne for Hawthorne and Wildwood, and that'll be a radio game of the week on 106.9 FM, and then I'll be at Citizens Field for Buchholz and Crestview, and that will be on MainStreetDailyNews.com, and both are 7:30 kickoffs, and pregame at 7 for Hawthorne, 7:15 for Buchholz. So we'll be covering 2 games Friday night because we've got 2 teams at home in the area. Looking forward to getting out to Citizens Field again on Friday.
No doubt about it. Marty, great stuff as always. We appreciate your time. Have a good call, and we'll talk to you soon, man.
All right, Shane. Good to talk to you again. Thanks.
Yep, that's marvelous. Marty Pallman. Join us on the Titanmore Hotline. Does a tremendous job for the PrepZone.com. Let's get to this day in sports, which is brought to you by our good friends at Comfort Temp. Comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. Beat the summer heat. And schedule your air conditioners tune up today, or get your heater tuned up today, keeping you chill in the Florida heat far away. Comfort Tip Heating and Air. Call them today at 352-376-2366. This day in sports in 1959, San Francisco Giants future Hall of Famer slugger Willie McCovey wins the NL Rookie of the Year. And that's brought to you by our good friends at Comfort Temp. Tomorrow, JC and I will have our Peachland Dental weekend picks. I'm waiting on my bandy guys to get in touch with me. Some of these people don't get back to you. It drives you crazy. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Tell all your friends and family about our program. You can follow us and like us on all the different platforms out there. Today's show was a good one. I enjoy having Brent Beaird, getting his thoughts. Appreciate you guys chiming in as well. Have a great day, folks. Tonight, you got a pretty good NFL game. You got the Packers and the Titans. Big old Derrick Henry. Just imagine trying to tackle him. Have a great day, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.